Whoever gave me this question gets major props, because this is one of the topics that I came in really thinking like I already know the answer, I already know what I'm going to say, because I was taught something my entire life, and so I just believed it blindly. When I got asked this, I really studied. I really went through scripture trying to find anything at all about masturbation, and I just can't anywhere at all. You can find some verses talking about sex that you can twist horribly into telling somebody that this is why you can't masturbate as a Christian, but that's wrong. Horrible way to read the Bible. It's exegetically poor. There's nothing in scripture that calls masturbation a sin. So is masturbation a sin? No, it's not. But I think there are a lot of things around masturbation that are absolutely sins. And I think the amount of Christians who can engage in masturbation and none of the other things that surround it is extremely small. So I'm not condoning masturbation. I'm saying the act is not a sin, because it's not. You can't tell me from the Bible that it is. But the things that surround it and the things that most people engage in while masturbating, those are sinful. So let's talk about those. Lust is a sin. Most people cannot engage in masturbation without lust being involved. Most. Not all. People who masturbate usually begin to do it more and more. It becomes a ritual. It becomes a routine. People do it every night before they go to bed. It's just what they do. It helps them relax. It's just become routine in their life, so that's what they do. It can become addicting. So if you're one of those people that you do it every day and you can't go a day without doing it, I think you should consider that masturbation is or has mastered you. Paul talks about to the Corinthian church, he says, I will never allow anything to master me. So I think we should follow the same idea. Paul also says that if you have these desires, you should be seeking marriage, because that is the original intention of God allowing us that pleasure, feeling, usage of our junk. So you should be seeking marriage. Not everybody thinks about sex a lot. Not everybody masturbates at all. But the people who do usually get very involved in it. So Paul says to stay away from temptation, to not fall, you need to be seeking marriage, period. So when I got asked this question, I got asked another question about mutual masturbation with somebody you're married to. Fondling each other, playing with yourself while they do the same. Cool, go for it. There's nothing biblically that says you can't do that. You're in a covenant with that person, you have sex, so there's nothing that says that you can't also explore that side of it. It all falls into the covenant. So as far as I'm concerned, like from what I've read and what I understand, nobody can tell you can't do that. There's nothing in the Bible that says that touching each other with your hands is wrong, or touching yourself with your hands with your spouse, the person you're married to. There's nothing wrong with that. They can't say you can't do that. Something that tempts you to watch porn, don't do it. If you can't masturbate without porn, then the masturbation you are engaging in is sinful. Not because masturbation is a sin, but because porn absolutely is a sin. So if you can't masturbate without watching porn, then masturbation is not for you. So find something else to do at night. If you're married, can you masturbate? Somebody asked me that the same day that the other person asked me, just can you masturbate in general? I thought that was a good question. If you're married, can you masturbate? Obviously, if you're thinking about somebody else or you're watching porn, again, those are two, just like, it doesn't work. Lust is a sin. Pornography is a sin. So the masturbation you're engaging in with those two sins it all just becomes a sin. It's a big cluster of sins, so absolutely not. Now, if you're married and you're thinking about your wife or your husband, I can't find any reason, biblically or anything, to say that that's wrong. That's somebody you're in covenant with. It helps you stay away from other temptations, so I think it can actually be beneficial. That would be my answer. And some people are going to hate that too, but that's just, I can't I think it's beneficial. I think it can be helpful to a marriage if you're in a season of abstinence, to help one of the parties who's struggling stay away from sin. I think it can be beneficial. So let's be real. Masturbation is not a sin. But if you're single, can you really do it without thinking about somebody else that you're not married to, or watching something that you shouldn't be? I think that's where the line is. And I think for most people, they're not going to be able to do it. Most, but definitely not all. I think there are people who weren't raised on porn, like some of us were, and like our generation definitely is for the most part. People who aren't, who just like, they weren't grown up in a culture or society or just group of people that made sex into what it's not. If they weren't grown up with that, I think people can masturbate just for pleasure without thinking about really anything other than the feeling. And there's nothing biblically that says that's wrong. There's no reason to tell someone they can't do that. You have no biblical backing to say masturbation just for the pleasure, no sin involved, is wrong. I think that's fine. I just think that people who fall into that category, I think that's a really small group. So I'd be really careful. If you feel convicted not to masturbate, like I say about everything, if you have a conviction, then follow the conviction. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. If you feel convicted not to masturbate, then just don't masturbate. Like, that's a personal conviction. People should respect that, and you should respect that. The issue that I find with topics like this, anything really involving sex, it's usually pretty prevalent, is people confuse conviction and guilt and shame. Guilt and shame are not of God. Conviction is absolutely of God. People are told and taught that masturbation is wrong their entire lives. So now if they engage in it, even if they do it properly, like I just talked about, they feel guilt and shame because they were raised their entire lives being told this was not okay, that it was a sin, that God hates it, blah, blah, blah. It usually surfaces, especially with these types of things, because we get drilled so hard. We get these things drilled into our brain so hard as kids. So you have to understand the difference and be aware of that. But follow your conviction always. So that's it. I don't think it's a sin. I think the things surrounding it are sin, and I think the amount of people who can do it in a proper manner, I think is really low. I think it's a small group. As usual, people are going to be mad about this. That's fine. If you disagree, tell me why. Let's talk about it. Don't just put hateful stuff on my Instagram. Let's talk about it. If you can prove me wrong, or if you can make me think differently about it, then I will recant everything I said and I'll make a new video, because I was on your team 10 days ago. But just with all the studying, this is where I've got. So if you disagree, let's talk about it. Otherwise, do all the YouTube stuff below. Find me on Instagram. Bye.